Okay, in this wireless Sedona by Aurora-AX session, we will be going over the process to set up the SedonaJen6lpNetwork network and discovering wireless Sedona devices. So in the previous session, we covered the process of installing the framework. Now we need to install the driver and associated services. So in this case, let's go ahead and open the station. And we'll drop down into the drivers folder where you'll see I have a Niagara and Obix network. So we need to drop the Sedona network in. So you want to go to the window, sidebars, and select the control palette. At this point we'll use the open palette folder and we want to look for the Gen6LP network. And you'll see it here, so we double click and open the folder and you'll see now that we have the Sedona Gen6LP network available. So you simply highlight the network and drop and drag it over the drivers folder. Alright, the Sedona Gen6LP network is now in place. So next we want to go look for the in Sedona file. You scroll down to the in Sedona and you see it here. And this is where your SOX tunnel service is located. In this case, we want to highlight it and drag it and drop it over the services folder. Once it's there, go ahead and open your services folder and scroll down to your SOX tunnel service and go ahead and open it. The very first thing you want to do is go to the last tab for Authenticate with User Service. Go ahead and set that to false. Okay. Now it's time to set up the Sedona Gen6LP network. So right click and go into the property sheet. Good rule of thumb is to start from the bottom and move upwards in setting up the network. The very first thing we need to do is use the address map. So it's going to ask for an IPv4 address base. In this case we're going to use a 10.10.0 network. Now the last octet must be a .0 for the addressing to start. If you decide to use a different octet and try to move forward, it's going to give you an error. So you must use a .0 network, or the very last octet, for it to take. So we're going to start with a 10.10.0.0 IPv4, and this is what is going to map the IPv6 address from the wireless Sedona controllers to the framework. Next is your channel. As you can see, channels 11 through 26 are available. There are 3 channels that operate outside of a standard 2.4 GHz 802.11ab GRN network, and that's 18, 25, and 26. So in this case, we're going to use channel 26. Next is your PAN ID. This is your unique identifier that all devices on the network must share to communicate with your JACE. In this case, the PAN ID of this network is 0. Any hexadecimal addressing scheme will work. As you can see, the default is DEFA. Next, you want to go to Chopin server and you want to enable it. This is a dependency for the service pin feature in our controllers. So go ahead and save those changes. We've set the IPv4 address base, we've selected an appropriate channel, PAN ID, and we've enabled Chopin server. Now we need to enable the network. So let's go ahead and enable the network. And when we do this, we have 2 Sedona devices currently powered on in our facility. And we're going to watch here in the address map first and see if the devices populate. Alright, you can see 2 devices join the network. Device 10.10.0.1, which is mapped to from the IPv6 address of the Sedona controller. This area of the property sheet is very important when you're trying to troubleshoot your RF network, as this is indicative of what is taking place on the wireless side of things. So if you have devices that seem to be giving you communication problems, you can verify that they're actually on the network in this screen. So if we double click the Sedona network again, we'll open up a separate tab so we can bounce between the 2. Now let's discover these devices. So you simply select Discover. Alright, the first 2 devices populated on the network. So we're going to go ahead and select the two devices and add them to the network. And we have no idea what the devices are at this point, so we're going to leave them in this state. Now, the service pin feature, which is the bottom right push button on the Aurora-AX wireless controllers, is the service pin button. I'm going to activate one of the buttons and then show you how to go through the naming convention. Okay, as you can see, device 101002 was selected. This is an Aurora WIO24. So let's name this device Aurora WIO24. And by default, this makes this other controller an Aurora WIO12, as these are the two devices running on our demo board. So we have the two devices, and now we've got them added to our network. So because we've added the SOX tunnel service, you can right-click the controller and see that Open SOX tunnel session is available. Without the SOX tunnel service added to the network, that feature would not be there. And you can also drop down the network here, find the same devices, and the same feature is available in both areas. So let's go ahead and enter into a tunnel session. This is where you'll do the programming and advanced features within the controller itself. The default username is admin, no password. So you enter into a SOX tunnel session, and there you can see the Sedona controller, WIO8646, which is the naming convention for our 24IO controller, for the 8 universal inputs, 6 analog outputs, 4 digital inputs, and 6 relay outputs. So if you drop down the plus sign beside the Sedona device, you can see you have two folders, Tools and App. Inside the Tools folder, you have the App Manager, which we'll cover in the next session, and then you have the app itself. So by opening the application, you can see where the program resides. So if you simply double-click on the program, at this point, you're actually looking at the logic inside of the controller itself. And again, in the next session, we will go over getting and putting apps into the controllers and then making alterations of existing programs and building new programs. So it's that simple. Setting up the Sedona network by using the property sheet, ensuring you have your IPv4 address map, ensuring you've selected the appropriate channel, PAN ID, enabling Chopin server, and then finally enabling the network.